So we should get started, and I think we're starting. Hold on.
We should do the Mark Maron thing where we don't know that we've started, and then
Oh, that
we're
thing?
like, "Oh, are we on?" And you're like, "Yeah."
That's funny because we did start.
Oh, we
Hey,
did.
it's the Video Game Break Podcast, and I'm Carl Spadilla. Today we have Dean Tate, who you just heard.
Hey, I've already talked a bunch, I guess.
Well, it depends on where I started editing. But yes, you have. And Scott Sizemore.
Back for more.
So both of you guys have been on the podcast before. And I said, you know what? They're not that bad. We can bring it back.
Okay.
But yeah, welcome to the new and improved, fancy / more casual podcast that Dean doesn't want to use his headphones for. It's okay though. It's fine. We're not judging you.
I'm fancy.
You're fancy without the headphones.
Yeah.
So what we're doing now on the podcast, until I decide it's not fun anymore, is we're having all the guests say 15 seconds about themselves. And then if someone hasn't heard you before, they know about you. And Scott, go 15 seconds.
I do a lot of swing dancing lately, and I don't have enough time to make games, but lately it's been a role-playing game where instead of fighting, you do homework.
Wait, that's it? Wow, you beat my whole plan. That was not even 10 seconds.
No, yeah, I can whip through it.
Okay.
I'm gonna see if I can beat that, I guess.
What? That was like 7-8 seconds.
Yeah, and I covered dance for part of it.
Yeah, I know.
All right, ready? Dean, go.
Hello, I'm Dean Tate.
Oh, you
That's
bastard.
pretty good. Pretty good.
I don't do any swing dancing. Although I used to work on a dance game back when I was working at Harmonix. Oh man, I'm going over 15 seconds now. So right now I'm working on a game called Captain Forever Remix. I'm an indie developer here in Seattle, and I used to work in AAA.
That's perfect.
How was that?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
perfect.
good.
Yeah.
Good.
I wasn't, at some point I stopped counting because I was like, I don't know if we're doing it anymore.
Yeah, I think I just confused you.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming back, guys. And we're excited to talk about video games and also some news. And unfortunately, Evernote isn't working on my computer, so I'm using my phone. So, sorry. It's kind of weird.
You're not text messaging?
No, I'm doing that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm text messaging.
I'm like, these guys, come on. What? So let's talk about what we're playing first. I could go on for a while, but why don't we have the guests start? Who wants to start?
I'll go. I've been playing Far Cry 4 since, I don't know, I feel like I got it for Christmas and never put it down.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it, sort of despite myself, I think. I don't know if you guys talked about Far Cry 4 yet.
We have talked about a little bit.
What was your take on the whole experience?
I mean,
you played Far Cry 3?
Yeah.
I played the crazy DLC. What was it,
Oh,
like Dragon something?
yeah.
That's all I played.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you play 3?
Yeah, I did. And I feel like 4 is 3. Just more of 3, basically.
It is. It's like so much more refined. Like when you're going in to take out an outpost, there's so much like subtlety to it. And like I feel like I'm really like invested in taking out everybody without setting off an alarm. And there's that sort of like kind of Tenchu feel to it that I really appreciated.
Ooh, Tenchu. Nice callback.
Yeah. Old days. But so I feel like the difference between 4 and 3 is that 4 has like it's technically more competent. And the graphics are amazing. And shooting that bow, like I can kill people from miles away with that bow and arrow, and it's so satisfying to like barely be able to see them in the distance and still pop them one in the head.
Yeah.
So there's so much like finesse that goes into it.
It reminds me a little bit of the Tomb Raider, how the bow and arrow felt great in that.
Yeah.
Did you play that?
Yeah.
That was like surprising to me.
I was happy to use that thing for the entire game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like for 4, the thing that is driving me forward is the gameplay, whereas in 3, I actually really got into the story. And I know people didn't really appreciate like the cast of 3.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the whole rich kids of Instagram, but it's not a story about redemption. It's the story of people like descending into madness. And so to have this kid who doesn't really have any, he's just kind of dicking around with his friends, and then he becomes this like horrible person over time is such a fascinating story to me. Like his decline into madness in a way. Whereas I feel like that is a major theme of 4, that AJ or Ajay is sort of like this murderer, this like psychopathic murderer that just goes around wasting these outposts and killing all of these people without anyone really having to convince him to do it, because it's sort of like the nature of the game. So
Right.
To go kill people, but there's all this commentary about how you're just sort of a madman. And it's like a totally different approach to how you introduce a protagonist to a first-person kind of shooter story, because you can be an avatar like Link, and everything is sort of supposed to be your actions, or you can be like, what's a good example? Cloud, or not Cloud. What's a good role playing character that has their own character to it?
Well, obviously Link and
Link, yeah, Link doesn't have a personality. He's supposed to take on you, but then there's other games where you sort of like in 3, right? He's this specific character and he changes over the course. Of it. But AJ doesn't have any character to him.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I was really engaged in the story itself. Like Pagan Min is cool. He's a really cool character, and I like listening to him talk. But it just feels like he's talking.
Yeah.
Whereas the villain in the third one, there was like a relationship between my character and his character, and I found that really compelling.
Weirdly enough, there's a relationship, literally though, between those two characters.
Yeah.
So
it's really interesting that 4 has all this stuff, but I just don't really care that much. I don't care about the environment. I don't care about the people. I don't care about the conflict. It really is just about blood for the sake of blood.
But you know, it's interesting. A lot of people talked about they didn't like the fact that they had to be this douchebag in 3. And so I feel like developers were like, well, we're just going to not make him anybody. Yeah. And then you can put your own voice into it. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, which one do you go with then, you know?
And so I just think that, like, the story of 3 really drove me forward. Like, I felt it really was very compelling. Whereas 4, I probably played more of it, but I don't really care about it. I just enjoy the thing.
It's a fun world. Yeah, and they have
those animals is a blast.
And the animals fighting each other, like weird stuff that happens. You know, it's almost like Skyrim-esque in that way, right? Like you go over that mountain, I can go over there, and there's weird animals, and although, fuck those birds though.
What are the birds?
I think
there's all of a sudden hawks come out of nowhere, and they just attack you.
Right.
And it's like difficult.
They're
You're
so
like,
hard to kill.
What's going on? I have like guns and stuff. Like this is not.
It's funny. Like the only way I was able to get past that part of the game is just, or like personally get past playing that part, is that if I see it, like I have to have my arrow ready and I have to shoot it within that 3 seconds of it diving. I can't shoot it with a gun. I can't do anything else about it. I have to like zen out and just pop it. Otherwise, it'll attack me for like another 20 minutes.
I know. Did you try any of the Far Cry's, Dean?
No, I if I'm going to play a Far Cry, I feel like I need to go back and play Far Cry 2. That's the one that...
right.
2's the one to play.
Exactly.
2's the best one.
Yeah, that's the one that's sort of hailed as like the classic of the series and the one that's sort of the smartest and most interesting in terms of its emergent gameplay and systems. So I've tried playing it a couple of times. I've like gotten it started and gotten 10 minutes in, but have just dropped it for whatever reason. You know,
It's not fun.
It's great. But it's interesting from what I heard. So
it's difficult. Like those guns will break.
Right.
You know, you were actually, it was in Africa.
You have malaria.
Yeah.
Stuff is going to catch on fire.
Yeah, bad stuff's going to happen.
It's going to break down and your bones are going to break.
Yeah.
Setting stuff on fire is my favorite thing to do in Far Cry 2. That's how I killed everyone. It's like, well, Molotov, we're done.
Oh, I'm using a lot of those in the game I'm playing, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I love the Molotovs. They work in every game, by the way. Molotovs work. Dean, what are you working? What are you playing right now?
I've been playing a couple of things. So, in terms of like big scale games, I've been playing a lot of Dragon Age.
Oh, I love it. Dragon Age Inquisition.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I started playing that, I guess, when it came out. And I'm not usually into fantasy games. I'm kind of a little bit tired of fantasy and all of the fantasy tropes. But with this game, I've been finding that it's holding my attention just as well as, you know, Mass Effect, which I didn't expect. Because there's just enough sort of edge to that fantasy, and they're doing something that feels fresh. I felt like I played a little bit of the first Dragon Age and didn't really feel like I sort of got a good sense for how that world worked and how it was different from other fantasy games. But with Inquisition, I'm at the point where I sort of dug deep enough into the lore to sort of understand that, like, oh, this is extremely different to typical Tolkien fantasy.
Yeah. Did you do that little keep thing in the beginning to get caught up? There's like a thing you can do.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
and that helps.
Yeah, that helped a lot. And I skipped Dragon Age 2, so that it helped catching up there. Yeah.
You're right though. There's something different about it because Kenzie, who's an official co-host of this podcast, she always wanted me to play Dragon Age, and she'd leave it around the house. And like, okay, I'm gonna play it. Yeah. And when I did it, I had that same experience as you did. It wasn't being attached to what they were trying to sell me, and also I didn't like the tactical, camera thing the combat because it felt like it was focused on that. Like a lot of my characters would just die if I wasn't paying attention to them. This one, it does not do that. No. You can use it if you want. But it's just so much more smarter about the way they do combat. And
I tried to use that a whole bunch early on in the game whenever I'd hit like a really tough battle. But then I kind of grew comfortable with not messing with it. And so now I barely touch the tactical mode and just stick to controlling my own guy. And it's great because you can switch between different characters. So if you get bored of playing the class that you've chosen for your actual main character, you can get a taste of the other ones. And it feels like this nice mix of like I don't know. It feels like there's some Final Fantasy 12 in there, where
Right.
you're giving your AIs a little bit of a sense for how you want them to behave, but they more or less take care of themselves, which is really cool.
And like you said, though, creating or maneuvering with other characters is important because later on you're going to be in a place where it's a really big dragon or really big boss, and your main guy that you've been using the whole time is fucking dead, and you've got to figure it out tactically how you're supposed to deal with the other characters. So anybody who just started it for some reason, and that could be the case, play as your other characters in the party because it's important.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm like, I must be 100 hours in.
I was going to ask, yeah.
Close, I think I'm close to finishing it. Whereas with Dragon Age 1, like you said, I just couldn't get into it. And yet I forced myself to play all the way through to the end. I actually got around 10 minutes from the ending of it and just gave up. I was like, I just don't care what's going to happen.
Yeah. But this one you're invested, right?
This one I'm super invested, just as much as I have been with any of the Mass Effect games, which is great to see Dragon Age sort of hit that level of quality, which I don't think it was at earlier in the series.
And I think that's a great comparison. I mean, I felt like I was in a Mass Effect game playing the whole thing. And yeah, I literally went 80, 90 hours before I was like, okay, I'm going to focus on beating it, which is just what Skyrim was like, you know? So there's definitely similarities. And weirdly enough, without getting too much into it, there's similarities, but it's still different. Meaning, like, there definitely is that hook, and I can play for 80, 90 hours and not care about the main story right now. But the difference is the main story I actually really like.
Yeah.
And the Skyrim story is kind of throwaway in my opinion. Yeah. And this one I was like, and then you forge, relationships, literally physical relationships, if you want, and that's a part of it. It makes you feel more invested.
Oh, the secondary characters are amazing. I go back to something like Baldur's Gate, and I have these vivid memories of like forming these amazing relationships with these characters, like is it Imoen from Baldur's Gate, and the big lug with the hamster, I forget his name, Minsk and Boo. I go back to those games and I'm like, oh, actually, the writing was not actually that good.
It was in your head.
It was in my head.
Yeah.
But now when I play, the amazing thing about Dragon Age is that you play it, and the characters and the relationships that you form with them, and sort of the level of they feel like real characters, and it's like you're playing the version of Baldur's Gate that you have in your head, which is a version of that game that doesn't actually exist, but it exists. It kind of exists here in Dragon Age, which is amazing.
Well, that's a great compliment for them. Yeah, because I agree, and a lot of it, even back to the Atari or Nintendo days, like we were making a lot of shit up there. We go back and play it, and that's why some of us are like, oh, okay, I remember this differently, because my imagination was crazy, and I had all these other ideas of what it was. Well, one game I'm playing that is similar to Far Cry is Dying Light, and it is all of my time, all the days. It is a Skyrim feeling / Dragon Age feeling where I'm excited to play it tonight. I'm excited for what I'm going to see. It feels like Far Cry. It feels like Skyrim. It's got the RPG elements. It feels like basically what Dead Island wanted to be. No offense to Dead Island, because I actually like Deep Silver and I love that game. But this is graphically superior. It has parkour in it, which works really well. It's Mirror's Edge with zombies.
Oh, wow. I love Mirror's Edge.
I mean, it is literally, great. And you don't have to fight zombies. Like, the very first mission, they're like, go to this camp, and the minute you go out, you see a street full of zombies. I just parkoured around them and never touched one zombie and got to my goal. So, at times, there's places where, like, there's not invisible walls, but very big fences, so it's tough. But in general, it feels pretty open. In a really big city, and it's just incredible. It really is good.
Is it a little bit like Sunset Overdrive then, but more serious? Because that game is also like zombies with parkour.
No, that's ridiculous. Yeah, and funny. But no, this is definitely serious. It's in a Middle Eastern country, Hassan. It's like some fake country, but it feels real. It feels like a war-torn area, and you basically go in to figure out where this virus is potentially that caused all this stuff, and potentially some bad guy is doing it all or has the virus and can do it more. And they really are nebulous about what your mission is, and I'm having a feeling that the ending is going to be some sort of flip around. But yeah, so I'm in there and kind of infiltrating like the people that live in this area and seeing how they're dealing with the zombie, and they've got a whole system, like a Walking Dead kind of thing. They've figured it out. Here's their safe houses. And they want me to help out. So that's kind of how you enter the game. And the interesting thing about it is there's day and night cycles. Kind of fake in the fact that they force them when they want them, right? So it's not like true day and night. But at nighttime, it's like pretty fucking bad. You don't feel strong anymore. And during the day, you're like, I could probably parkour around those guys,
Mhm.
you know. But at night, they just ramp everything up, and it feels like, oh shit, I better hurry up and get to where I'm going.
Hmm.
So it's fucking great.
I'm actually kind of interested in this game now. Yeah, I had no
Nice.
idea. I had no idea just looking at the Steam page or whatever.
Yeah. Although I'm playing on PS4, but yeah.
Ah.
And the last thing I'll say about it, there is definitely crafting as well, and skill tree. So there's a little bit of RPG elements in that way.
Yeah.
So I think it's great.
Cool.
Dying Light, people. Also, the last thing I'm playing, and we can go back around if you have other things.
I
But
have one more. Yeah.
okay, yeah, Citizens of Earth.
I haven't played it.
It's basically an Earthbound type game.
Oh yeah, I do know about Citizens
cool.
of Earth. That's
Yeah, and you're playing the vice president, and then you're going around finding people to do basically Earthbound combat in a kind of comical top-down view RPG.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is that it's pretty great and it's fun, but it's really trying to be funny the whole time. Like the president keeps making or the vice president keeps making quips like that. If I was seen with that, oh man, the press would eat it up. I'm like, okay,
Just trying too hard.
yeah, maybe not all the time.
Yeah.
And with Earthbound, it was like just some kid.
It's just weird.
Yeah.
It was just weirdish.
It was weird. It wasn't
Yeah.
like supposed to be funny. It's
No.
just strange.
Yeah.
It's a Japanese game about American culture for a Japanese audience.
Right, and then we translated it to be,
Like even weirder. and
even weirder kind of, yeah. So there's no redoing that, but the style of the game is pretty much the same,
Mhm.
and the combat's the same, etc. So it's fun, but man, he just got to stop making those little jokes.
What platforms are it on?
It's on Steam, and also it just went to PS4.
Okay.
And I kind of got mad because I bought it on Steam, and I'd rather play it on my television. But what else are you playing, Dean?
Yeah, I wanted to give a shout out to a really cool indie game that I've been playing, which is Gravity Ghost. Have you guys heard of this game?
I think I heard the name, but I haven't seen it.
It's a really sweet little sort of. It's extremely unique. So it's kind of hard to explain, but it's a little bit like. Have you guys played Osmos?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So Osmos is this sort of physics-based puzzle game where you're sort of dealing with the gravity wells that surround planets and trying to. I guess I shouldn't explain what Osmos is. I'll explain what Gravity Ghost is. So
Okay.
Gravity Ghost is sort of a platformer. It's almost like 2D Mario Galaxy,
right.
but with this really sort of touching, like melancholy feel to it. So you're playing this little girl who is a ghost, who is. I haven't gotten far enough into the story to sort of go further than that and actually spoil what it's about, but. It's like a puzzle platformer where you're sort of leaping around and dealing with the pull of the gravity on these planets in this 2D field, and
So you can go 360 around the planet, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you'll jump and then you'll sort of take off into space and start like orbiting the planet, and you'll have a little bit of control over where you're moving, and you're trying to like collect things, and you're trying to solve puzzles, and you're trying to like there are these instances where you're like trying to reunite the ghost of an animal with its own like physical bones.
Whoa!
To sort of put it at peace. So there's this really nice sort of there's some deep narrative stuff going on, which is why I want to play more of it to see where that goes.
I like that, yeah, because you can have the action elements, but then you like tie that in. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It totally reminds me of Cosmocoria, though. Do you know Cosmocoria? Oh man, you guys didn't know him?
Mm-hmm.
He was at I don't know. I forgot his name now. He's gonna kill me. He's awesome. The name that's not his name. I'll look it up in a minute. That guy.
He's great.
It was on. Nate. Yeah, Nate Schmold. Cosmocoria is your little astronaut on these like little planets, 2D Mario style, and you go around them and you plant things, and then you can like fight like weird space dragons. It's fucking great. So,
Right.
So what was your name? That one again?
Gravity Ghost.
So Gravity Ghost and Cosmocoria, both of the same ilk. Check them out.
I haven't met the young lady that made Gravity Ghost.
Erin
Now
Robinson?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
she's
now
great.
Totally spaced on what you're talking about, but yeah, I know her.
I want to mention one more thing. Do you have another game, or is that all you're playing as the Far Cry's?
Yeah, I'm working on my own stuff right now, so it's a lot of trying to focus, like spending a lot of time looking at UI. Not
Yay!
actually playing the game.
Oh,
just
that's
like,
the most fun part of a project.
Yeah,
Is making the menus.
kind of.
Yeah.
My game is a little bit complicated for menuing.
I know it's got weird. We talked about your
Yeah.
game or your at least whole scope of games.
Yeah, and the last time we talked about it, I was working on the music section, which is sort of part of this sort of general idea of connecting little games together and sharing like a larger pool of scores, right? Like that's sort of the central tenet of my project. But now I've moved past that. I have the music games. I have like explained this to everybody. I've sort of gotten the support I need. Now I'm just sort of like trying to work something out with the University of Washington. So I need to move on into the game, like the deep stuff that people actually want to like sit and play, not the basically what is homework to give you enough points so that you can do this stuff in the actual game. Now I'm making the actual game.
The actual game.
Basically, the chemistry section is going to be a lot like Civilization or any kind of game where you build your world as you go. You start with nothing and then you eventually have like a society. So, but trying to integrate that in with like, well, here's a bunch of physics assignments. Like, what does that tie into? So I'm basically creating a giant crafting system using this while also building this profiling system, and their UIs have to work together, and it's really hard to figure out like, well, I need you to be able to go off and do a bunch of physics problems so that you can upgrade your crafting ability, but like exactly how do I get you from place to place, right?
Yeah. The interconnectedness tissues.
So if I just present everything in a tree like I have been up until now, like it's really concise, but it's not engaging. What it needs to be like, all right, well, here's planet Earth. You can go to the ocean. You can go to the forest. Well, you're in the forest. What do you want to do? You can hunt. You can...
Right, and then it goes to the things that you built.
Yeah, so I want to harvest. Okay, well, you're in the forest. You're going to harvest. Here are the different things. If you want to harvest wood, you need an axe. So, now you've done all the stuff it takes to get an axe. Well, you want to hit something with the axe better and upgrade your craft or your harvesting, then you need to do stuff about centrifugal force and all that, and that takes you back out into the tree.
Yeah.
But like just building on this giant network in my notes and then actually trying to figure out how do you make a menu out of it is incredibly complicated.
And for the listeners at home, we'll put a link into the show notes for the games that you worked on, or basically the things that are out there now. But yeah, you can go back and listen to our, I don't know what episode it was.
Yeah, I would just go back
find
and
the episode.
Listen. There's not really lots to actually
But yeah, in general, it's a pretty cool concept, and you should listen to that podcast to understand all of it in full. But I'm excited to see what happens with it. Actually, I'll talk about one more game, but Dean, why don't you just mention what's going on with your game, which is something I'm excited about as well.
Yeah, so it's called Captain Forever Remix, and I'm going to explain what it is, but I want to run that experiment that we talked about earlier.
Oh, am I going to do it?
I'm going to get you to describe it first.
I've actually played quite a bit. I think I can do it. Let's see. Here we go. Although I have been drinking.
I have seen like 10 seconds of it. Can I
explain
try to explain it?
You do first, and then I'll do second.
Okay. It's so you control some blocks that have like a thrust or a gun, and then you attach those blocks to one another, and you blow up ships made of those blocks, and you assemble those blocks into your own blocks.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
I don't say anything anymore.
It reminds me of the gummy ships from what's that game?
Gummy ship.
Yeah, gummy ship.
The old gummy ship.
The SquareSoft game about Disney movies.
Okay. So that has come up. The two references that have come up a whole bunch are. You're talking about the Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, gummy ship section, and then a lot of people have also mentioned. Damn it, I'm blanking.
I say Legos all the time. I say Legos. With spaceships.
Yep. So a lot of people say that. So it's like you're building a little tiny ship out of Legos, and the ship behaves physically. So you're being careful about how you build it. If you build a symmetrical ship, then it's going to fly like a symmetrical ship. If you build an symmetrical ship and like put some thrusters on the left of it but none on the right, then it's going to fly kind of lopsided. So,
or do what I did where I put thrusters all around and I somehow went straight still.
Right, which is great, and it's hilarious when people build asymmetrical ships that are still sort of balanced. So yeah, you're building these little ships. There's a lot of creativity in how you build your ship out of these different little modules like thrusters and a whole bunch of different weapons and bulkheads, and then you go out into space and you fight other ships that are made out of the same pieces. And you fight them, and the combat is sort of about like carefully picking apart your enemies, because you don't just damage the enemy's overall health, you damage individual pieces on their ship. So any pieces that you destroy are gone. Any pieces that you didn't destroy are left over after the battle once you destroy the enemy's core, and then you can like immediately take those pieces and put them onto your own ship.
And you can use that your mouse basically just drag and drop.
Yeah, once you get like. At any point you can like jump in and start editing your ship or add to it.
I like that idea that I don't, if I'm playing on a PC, later on, maybe it's on some other system, but on the PC, I like the idea that those objects are kind of floating in space around me, and I don't have to like go to pick them up. I can just grab what I see and then just use them. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super immediate. And So the game is based on this really popular Flash game from 2009 by an indie developer named Farbs, and he was kind enough to let me let Brian and I, who was the coder working on this project, take this on and sort of do a remix of his original concept. So we've taken the original concept of Captain River and we're adding a whole bunch of new stuff to it, new features, and like most notably a completely new art style and characters and sort of tone for the game. We've been referring to it sometimes as like a Saturday morning video game. We're borrowing a lot from like sort of 90s Saturday morning cartoon.
Ren and Stimpy.
Ren and Stimpy, Rugrats.
I'm so excited about this art style, people. You have
Yeah,
to
it's
see it.
beautiful.
It's so cool looking.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, that's you.
Yeah, like that's part of why we took on a project that is, a lot of the design work is done for us because Captain Forever, the original game, was such a great game, so we don't have to mess with the core of it too much. And that's allowing me to become a better artist because I've never been a full-time artist on a project like this before, so I'm getting to build those art skills. And same with Brian, like he's focusing on his coding work, which is like a new thing for both of us, so it's been really great in that way.
Yeah. So I have a couple questions for both of you before we go to news and our break that just came up. So I'm actually working on an app right now, which I'll talk about in the podcast later. Hopefully in a couple of weeks we'll be in beta. It's not a game, it's just an app. But I'm definitely in the development cycle with my developer. And it's only fun to me. I mean, it's tough as shit, but if you're doing something you love, it's also fun. Scott's like, I don't know. But
well, I'm working alone on it, and that's
right.
Not fun.
Yeah. So my question is like, we know Captain Forever Remix is done. You go, nah, that's it. That's what we're doing, or if it's an alpha or whatever. And when you finally have the an interface with what you're going to do, what is that beeping? There's a car. Sorry, guys. That's real life. Real life happens. Is where do you go with the channels? Like, obviously there's Steam, and I'm feeling like that's what most people go to. And Scott already launched some stuff on Windows Phone, which we both love, and I fucking love Windows Phone. But
it's you and me.
It's you and me, and it's just us.
Yeah.
Hey, Microsoft, can you
and
hook us up?
Southeast Asia.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All of my sales are in Southeast Asia.
Oh, there you go. We should visit them.
We should.
All of Southeast Asia, we should visit.
Windows Phone is
Thailand.
That's where it's popular.
Oh, I'll show you where all my downloads are at. There are countries I've never heard of.
Strange.
Azerbaijan was like my third customer.
Oh,
Not
wow.
Asia, but
Yeah. Oh, the whole country is their customer.
yeah, there's one guy in Azerbaijan. He was like number 5, and I love him, and I want to have like some kind of convention in Azerbaijan and invite that one guy.
Yeah, you should. So, like, what is the process for like when you, Dean? I'll start with you. You finish Captain Forever. Like, where are you going to go with it?
Well, I mean, so what happened for us, right, is that I had been working on an iOS game when I still had my full-time job at Harmonix, Captain Bubblenaut, which I released a few months after I'd left that company. And so that went on the App Store. And at that point, the App Store was going through massive changes, and the bubble had burst somewhat. And so Captain Bubblenaut came out on iOS. It did decently for a game coming out into that sort of climate. But how well it did was sort of enough to tell me that, like, okay, iOS is more or less done. If I want to become a full-time indie developer and make a game that has a chance of success, I need to go somewhere else.
Interesting.
So at that point, Steam was the platform that was looking the most, promising, and also for the type of game that I wanted to make, it looked like the place to go. Like that was actually a huge part of it for me. It's just it can really depend on what type of game you're making.
Right, that can't be on the phone. I mean, it could be on the phone, but I feel like
be.
that's a mouse and keyboard kind of game.
Yeah, so, I mean, interface is a part of it, right? For Captain Forever, it's that if we wanted to put it on touchscreens, then there's a huge design challenge in redesigning the interface so that it works for touchscreens. But then there's also just, the thought that, well, okay, this is a really challenging game that has these roguelike elements and sort of caters more to a sort of hardcore audience of people who are sort of sitting at their PCs, So where are those people? They're on Steam, so that's probably where we should be going.
Yeah.
If we're making some other game for a different audience, then that would have huge ramifications for where we wanted to release it.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I mean, but does that turn into, hey, let's put it on Greenlight? Does that put it on? What's the process? We have a friend and friend of the show. Robbie. Scott knows Robbie. Robbie just is on the homepage right now, I think, for his 8-bit
awesome.
MMO. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
But that was a long process, arduous process to get on there. I feel like I'm still confused on how it works. You know?
Greenlight can be painful from what I've heard, but also the good thing about it is that it forces you to market your game, and it forces you to become really good at communicating to your audience what it is that your game is and why it is worth being on the platform, and it forces you to build a community before you even get to the point where you're developing the game and putting a bunch of risk behind the idea that it's going to be a purchasable product on Steam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that what you think you're going to be doing with the Forever Remix?
No, we're on Steam.
You're already on?
Yeah, we're already on there.
You're on now?
Yeah, we're on there.
I'm behind the times.
Yeah, we have a Steam page and we have community discussions open and what have you. It's not for sale yet. We're going up on early access at the end of March.
Okay.
But the page is there, so you can wishlist it and you can follow it and you can get in on discussions and look for updates and all of that stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, and then what do you think you're doing? Besides, how you can't say that country's name?
Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan. Yeah. Besides them being strong supporters.
My platform concerns are a little bit more complicated. I think my initial goal is more of a research project. It's less of like a consumer grade entertainment product. It's something I think there's a lot of value. Like I know the game community is really interested in this idea, like a very like the verisimilitude in role-playing games. That's sort of what I think about it, like the ultimate verisimilitude. And I think that's sort of like an esoteric topic for people who are really into games for the sake of games. And well, I have to be good at math to be good at this game. Well, then I guess I have to be good at math. Like I think there's a contingency of that out there, like the hardcore role-player.
Real quick to clarify for the listening audience, because I know we really say it, and I'll do the thing you were going to say, like I'll explain your game.
Yeah, explain.
But in general, the subject that he's talking about is using real-world skills and learning and understanding of real-world things, and that applies into a video game. For me, I love the idea of it being into a role-playing game, so if you understand physics, that'll help your stats in your character.
Yeah, the best way to explain it probably is that, in any role-playing game, your short-term goal as like a person who is building a character as opposed to someone who's trying to complete a story is that you're building up these skills to make you more able to take on challenges in the future, right? So usually in these games, it's like, I need to get materia so I can get this fire spell and I can better fight ice monsters, right? And that's cool and that's fun, but that's like for a self-contained experience. What I'm really more interested in this idea of like actual skill. Like I have perfect pitch. I can read sheet music. I can run 6 miles in one afternoon, right? Like I can do all of these things that have some sort of like intrinsic value in the real world, and sort of taking that and accepting it for what it is and finding some kind of value for it. So like, well, yeah, my character runs a certain speed in Far Cry 4 until I get the upgrade, and then he runs a little faster. What I'm saying is like, you need to practice running.
Yeah.
You want your character to run faster.
Yeah.
Running
you as
fast,
a person.
Your running skill is your running
and
skill.
my running skill right now is 0.4.
Yeah. You just ran through a bunch of skills. I'm like, I don't have any of
that.
Yeah. So
I literally was trying to jog just earlier, and I was like, oh, I have no skill in this.
So, I mean, it's going to be the hardest video game anyone's ever played, because like, well, if you want to have a higher dexterity score, you got to learn how to type 90 words per minute. Like that's not me. I'm just saying, like, that's how you prove you have dexterity. You learn to dance, you learn to type, you learn how to play a keyboard or a guitar. Like we're gauging that in all of these different experiences. If you play Rocksmith, then like you have a guitar score. Like that is valuable. If you go into Skyrim, your bard score should be higher because you play the guitar. Like that is the way games should work in my little fantasy world that I live in my head, right? So what I'm really building is more of a platform to facilitate like this transfer of real world skills instead of creating sort of like these sort of abstract concepts of skills.
Right, that go away when you're done with the game, because it'd be fun to, like you said, like transfer the stuff over to another game. That'd be crazy.
And that's the beauty of like real skills, is that they're persistent. Like they have value, and you can say like, well, I don't care if you can run fast; it doesn't have value to me, so I'm going to ignore it. Or if it has value, then I will find some sort of function in my game for it.
Right.
Kind of hilarious because games are typically about escapism, and you go into the game and you can do things you can't do in the real world. Except your game is like,
no, you have to be able to do that.
It's like the game is going to tell you You can't.
It's-
You're not good at that thing. So
and
you're
it's
not
really-
good at a hero either.
It's perfect for a zombie game. Like that's not my genre. Like I don't enjoy them at all. But like the whole idea of a zombie thing is it's supposed to be really difficult because you're stuck in this place and you have to build like what you have with what you've got, or what you can with what you've got. So I'm gonna strip everything out unless you can actually like earn it yourself. But
But just so you know, to bring that over to Dying Light, I
Yeah.
would die
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Dying Light
Yeah.
immediately. Yeah.
But so to answer your actual question, that makes it complicated, right? Like it's not a game; it's this platform to facilitate the transfer of skills.
Yeah.
So Steam, like there is a possibility in Steam. I may have to build like my own infrastructure similar to Steam. So I don't know if it would actually work within their ecosystem. It'd be really cool to partner with them. I haven't talked to any of those guys about it. I've talked to. Well, I'm not going to get into that. That's complicated.
Well, we'll just call them up after the podcast.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
I'll
We'll call them. I'll call them up.
quick.
Yeah.
And so I think Khan Academy is probably the most probably the most equivalent form of like distribution because they sort of control their ecosystem. You can go out to YouTube and watch the videos, but it's still, as long as you're going through Khan Academy to get to YouTube, you're still counting your points up. And I think that sort of, this is the website you go to, you sign in, here's all of your information, you can download the home version in case you're not online, and I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
It's
because it's different because it's got to reach a lot of different places, and
Yeah.
so it's definitely not like a single contained unit. So
It's going to be a really long time before I hit that point, though. Like I said earlier, I'm waiting to find out if I got into grad school, so it's another month of just not knowing exactly what's going to happen. But the goal is to just deploy to individual schools and work with classrooms and make sure that my materials are sort of up to snuff and that kids are actually like going through the tracks
yeah,
and not just getting bored and going off and playing the space shooter without realizing like, oh, well, you should maybe learn a little bit about photonics. So that
maybe
your
you should be a
laser
better space shooter.
I know.
yeah,
Come
yeah,
on,
Space
people.
shooter.
But yeah.
Well, I'm excited about whatever happens with it. You know that I am. All Godspeed to it. All Godspeed to it. And also that other country I can't pronounce, which they're now going to be mad at me. What's it? How do you say that?
Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan.
Have you never seen the movie Tintin?
I have not.
Peter Jackson's Tintin.
Oh,
Yeah,
that one?
yeah.
The weird.
I was going to see it. Uncanny Valley scared me.
It's
Yeah.
An excellent movie, but
Okay.
they are on a boat called the Azerbaijan,
Oh, there
and
you
they
go.
to Azerbaijan.
Huh.
So you hear it a lot, and you kind of get in your head.
I'll watch the movie and then know how to pronounce it next
That
time.
movie has the most insane, like, kinetic.
It never
action
stops.
sequence. It's
Nothing stops.
Insane. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've
Hour
only
and a
seen
half
part of
action
it,
scenes.
and it broke my brain. The 20 minutes that I saw.
In 3D IMAX.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
no.
was just like a chase scene, and you're like, "Oh, this is really exciting." Oh,
Yeah.
there's a monkey. It's still going, and it was
Yeah.
20 minutes later, and the scene is still going on.
You know what that reminds me is of Birdman. Have you seen that, guys?
Yeah.
Nuts, yeah.
It was great, but also that I was on a blind date too,
Oh,
and we were like, this is not good for a blind date.
No, it's not.
Yeah, because we were like both uncomfortable all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I'm like, it was already, and now it wasn't
That's an
uncomfortable. It wasn't uncomfortable before that.
No,
but-
That movie is like it's just like a single shot from beginning to end,
Yeah.
more or less.
It's
So,
like obnoxious jazz is what that movie is.
no,
Like
I
you
love
have
it.
to like. I love no.
Okay.
I also really love obnoxious
I don't
jazz.
like obnoxious jazz.
All right, before we get into the jazz podcast, I'm going to say one more thing, and we're going to hit a break because we got to hit our numbers here. Numbers being time out, we got to hurry up. The Static Speaks My Name. Have you guys heard of this?
The Static Speaks My
It's a free game. I'm going to play it tonight. It's 10 minutes long. Here's the description of it. Just watch the trailer, by the way. A dark, sad, funny, weird first-person exploration game in which you play as a man obsessed with the meaning behind a painting. More of a story game in that it emphasizes mood and character over gameplay. Features 3D computer graphics in hundreds of colors, blue and pink to name a few.
Oh man,
Contain-
my game doesn't have hundreds of.
Oh, it doesn't? Oh. Contains explicit handling of suicide, so be warned.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a shrimp tank with a pet shrimp.
Oh, all right.
That's the
Okay.
description.
Great.
One pet shrimp.
I just watched it, and it's literally a character who's obsessed with this painting of these two trees, palm trees, and it confused me and excited me. And the fact that it's 10 minutes long. Go play it, people.
What's it called again?
The Static Speaks My Name. I'll put in a link in the show notes. And it's like free, so go donate some money to them because if you enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Just,
Okay.
Anyway, people need money.
People need people are making
Creative people need
people
money.
who make things need
Especially.
money.
Yeah.
Because generally we make things because we love to, and then we don't have any money,
If you don't give them money, they stop making them.
or they
They
die.
die. They definitely
Or
die.
they
And a puppy
don't
dies,
stop
too.
and they
Yeah.
die.
Yeah, they die and
they die
two
and they
puppies.
fall onto two puppies.
Two puppies, and they kill.
die.
Yeah. So basically, if you don't buy it, you kill the person
Yeah.
and two puppies,
Mhm.
and you don't know what happened. Like those two puppies might have had puppies of their own.
Yeah.
Who knows what happens?
That could have been
It's like a butterfly effect.
lineage that leads to like king puppies at some point.
Right,
Can that
right.
be
Just
plot
cut it
butterfly
off.
effect too?
It's butterfly effect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, the first
sequel.
one's good.
This could be even better.
There's a sequel.
I didn't know there was a sequel. Is there a sequel?
This could be the sequel.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think there is a sequel.
There is a sequel.
Oh, yeah.
Has it
It's
got
not
Ashton
good.
Kutcher in it?
So what you're saying is still the true statement. There could be a sequel.
There could be a
because there
sequel,
wasn't really. Yeah. The first one was Ashton Kutcher. It was not
Yeah.
bad.
It was
It's
okay.
alright.
It was okay. Although, by the way, I want to see the Almanac. Have you seen that?
No.
It's coming out, I think, today.
Okay.
It's of the idea of like, go back in the past and fuck with shit. Anyways, we're going to an interlude, music interlude. We'll come back with news. Bye.
That was what I loved about that game, was that I have rarely used the quick travel, because I would just okay, I want to go to this new place over here. I haven't been to the places in between where I am now and where that is, so I'm just going to walk through, because there's a really good chance that I'm going to run into something that I haven't seen.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The map was like so full of interesting things that you felt like it was worth your while. to
Yeah,
just
it
walk.
was fun.
Because
Yeah.
I feel like with 4, what I was saying earlier about how like it's pure avatar, like
Mhm.
that person. There's no character AJ. That's just a thing
Yeah.
people say because you can't record people saying
He
your
needs a name,
right?
yeah.
He needs a name. But if you attach that with the whole map system, like
Mhm.
I am not this character at all. Like I have no connection to
Yeah,
him.
you're a
all I
weird
have is those
ethereal
arms.
thing that can like
His-
teleport over here and then start shooting dudes, and then
My interaction with the world really is these 2 arms.
Yeah.
And like that is all. And
Right.
since I pop in, I do my thing, and I disappear.
Yeah.
I really do feel like I'm checking off boxes on,
Yeah.
on a list, and I'm not
Dragon Age
engaged in
doesn't.
the world.
Well, Dragon Age doesn't feel that way in terms of like I feel like my character is a character, but I also definitely feel like I'm just like ticking boxes off. Like,
Like
I have to go to all these points on the map where there is a dot. Go there, press a button to get the dot to go away.
I guess I'm not
And then keep
pursuing a narrative anymore.
Mhm.
I'm looking at like, all right, I like these. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go here and do that. And
Mhm.
it's not. I'm not on a like Chrono Trigger. It's one of my favorite. Actually, I
Oh,
forgot it.
so
Earthbound
good.
is my favorite, but Chrono Trigger I feel like has a better analog to this.
Mhm.
Like you have to really like walk everywhere until you get that ship and can fly around. And
Yeah.
even then, you're still walking.
Yeah.
Like you're walking in a spaceship or
Yeah.
an airship.
Mhm.
And it is a cohesive narrative from beginning to end.
Mhm.
Whereas in Far Cry 4, like stuff happens, but the order is totally unnecessary. Like I
Yeah.
don't really have any idea what happened.
Right.
Someone asked me to kill some people, I killed them.
Cool. I'm not gonna play it then.
But
I wouldn't say
Nice.
that
I
on
love
the
it. I
podcast.
really enjoy it.
Yeah.
But it's made me. I'm not saying that it's wrong or that it's bad.
Mhm.
What I'm curious about is like the limits of it.
Mhm.
Because with my project, like this idea of Avatar is so complete
Mhm.
that having a character actually makes it harder.
Mhm.
And so what's making it difficult is I want you to be able to explore the world. There's no reason having skills if you can't explore and use them.
Mhm.
But what I'm starting to wonder because my idea was that location, things you can do at that location. Like you're not there, you're not picking up the things.
Mhm.
And would that be detrimental to your sort of like attachment to this character that you're building if you
Mhm.
can't actually go out and explore the world?
Mhm.
Because I can't make that. Like that game that would use all those skills is like a Ubisoft style
Yeah.
size game.
Right.
But can I just cut it down to pictures of a map and say like, here's the activity that you're doing, here's the
Mhm.
timer saying when it's done, and what upgrades you have to do to make that timer slower? Like,
Mhm.
is that? It's not worse,
Mhm.
right? But is it ideal? Like, is it really what you want to strive for?
Right. Did you record all that?
I was recording all of it, yeah. Just to make sure. We can start right now. We can go right back into it.
All right.
Let's do the news. And that was a little discussion from Scott Sizemore. Soapbox time.
I do want to say about Far Cry 4 though that their navigation system is really impressive, because if you press the select button, you have like these 9 little things that you can go to, and you press the start button, it's got all of these other things, and there's just so much content with that select button
Mhm.
of going into your skill list and all the things you do in the skills, and your map is so big and your inventory is so big, and you're always just going through these huge lists of things. But it never feels like any of it's like a distance from you, right?
Mhm.
If you want to change your item, you do that while you're walking around the world, and that's
Mhm.
fluid. If you want to look at the map, you pause and you look at the map. But it's amazing to me how much content is in their user interface. Like, that game is a sprawling world set in the Himalayas, I think. It's in the Himalayas.
Yeah,
And
version of it.
It's amazing. Jumping in that air glider, I will just get an air glider and do the squirrel suit, and I'll just fly through the world for the sake of flying through it, because it's a beautiful place, but I have no personal attachment to it. all my attachment is through this amazing UI that still pushed me through, 60 hours of this game as I'm basically playing a user interface where I shoot people every now and then.
But
it's really impressive.
And we started with you working on user interface, and obviously that's a big
deal.
I've been
paying a lot of attention to it.
Yeah, as you just told us. Well, that is awesome. Far Cry 4. Again, if you like Far Cry 3, play Far Cry 4.
Absolutely.
It's pretty much the same thing. There's a little bit of differences. And also, you can beat it right away. You know about that thing?
I do. And, I just finished it. I'm not going to, say how I finished it, but, the little speech he gives you, and he's like, wait, is that game past spoiler alert?
No, not yet.
I haven't.
Yeah.
So okay. So you can choose whether you do something or you don't. So you can shoot a guy or you not shoot a guy, right? If you shoot him, it's the end. If you don't shoot him, I'm sure something else happens. But it came to that point where I had to decide, do I shoot him or do I not shoot him?
Wait. We're talking about a shooter where the choice is that you get to choose whether to shoot the thing or not.
Well, the person is asking you, are you going to shoot me or are you not going to shoot me? And in other games, all the Far Cry's sort of do this. You choose and then you do it or you don't, and this story sort of moves from there. But this was the first time where I was I had my gun on him, and he's like, what are you going to do? And I could see the gun start to lower, and I have to shoot him. That's what I've been doing this whole time, is trying to shoot this guy.
Right.
I'm going to do it. Because the character that I had been playing up till this point, as that avatar, has been seeking this out this whole time. Even though I personally, how I have played every other game in my entire life, I always choose what I would do. And this time I said, no, this character has gone this far. He is shooting this person. And then I did it, and I instantly felt remorse.
Yeah.
It was the biggest mistake, and I felt it as soon as I pulled the trigger.
Your avatar, did he feel?
I know. He felt nothing.
He felt nothing.
He felt nothing.
It is done.
I did what you told me to do. You hit the button, I did the button.
But I've never felt remorse before for a choice that I made in a game.
I think that happened recently. I can't remember which game it was, but there was a game where, shoot the person or don't. Oh, it was Watch Dogs. And again, not really spoiler, but there's definitely that kind of thing at the end. Okay, here's your guy you've been searching for this whole time. He's a fucking douchebag.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, you're in this room by yourself, do whatever you need to do. And I was like, fuck that shit, I'm leaving. I'm not going to shoot him.
Yeah.
And I just left, and it felt great.
Normally I would leave. This time I did it.
Right,
and I never would do that, and I did it, and I felt horrible. And it amazed me.
It still haunts your dreams.
It was great. As a narrative experience, it was really impressive to me that they put me in a position where I did the thing against my nature, and then instantly felt bad about not doing how
This comes up a lot with the ending of The Last of Us, right? Have you guys played that?
Yeah.
I think it's past spoiler.
Yeah, that probably is,
definitely.
I was
There's a remix now.
Right.
It was updated.
I was so in sync with Joel and sort of what he was feeling at the end of that game that I just did what I thought that he would do, which was basically to just pull the trigger on everyone.
Yeah.
And there have been a lot of complaints leveled at that game because you don't have the choice to not do that. But that ending worked for me so well because I was just sort of right there with him and in the same frame of mind that he was in, that I just did what I thought that he would do. And so it worked. It just flowed because of that, instead of sort of grinding to a halt because the game is saying oh no, this is the thing you need to do is shoot these, maybe innocent doctors. And then move on. And no, I just did it.
And that's what's so great about Fallout, and that's what you mentioned earlier, Fallout and sometimes Skyrim, but Fallout definitely with the kind of morality choices. It's anything can happen here. You can pick any of these things. Fallout 1 and 2 was one of the most classic examples of this. You could literally kill people, and then that whole mission would be gone.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck, I just guess I'm not going to do that now. And other games are doing that more and more, I think. But, I love that stuff of choice. Real quick, this is bringing up this other idea I had. In Dying Light, there's literally in the very early part of the game, and this is spoiler or whatever, it's such a simple thing. There's some guy who sold some drugs to somebody, and they were bunk drugs. And so they're like, hey, because you're the new guy, go figure out what's going on with those guys selling shit drugs. So I go over there, and the guy's like, in 2 seconds, hey, what, you got a problem with me? And then literally okay, now I'm going to fight this guy.
Yeah.
So they're like, take him out, my earpiece. And I'm like, okay, I guess. But I just met these people. It's a whole group of people. They all immediately chase me. And I'm literally throwing Molotov cocktails to come back to that into their face. They're human beings. It's not zombies, right? And I'm burning people alive. And literally the last guy I kind of hit in the back because he was around the corner. I didn't mean to, but I cut his head off, right? So the guy's lying on the ground.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, it does. You accidentally do it. And I had a wrench. I don't know how that works. But his head's off. He's bleeding out in front of me. I literally killed 7 people.
You cut his head off with a wrench?
Yeah. I mean, all I have is
Happens all the time.
in the beginning you have like water pipes and wrenches. It's like,
Yeah.
Anyways, the point is I'm sitting here with all these dead bodies, flaming bodies, and a decapitated person, and they're like, "Hey, did you take care of that thing with the guy who sold the bad drugs?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I murdered all of them." Anyways, what do you want me to do next? Like, it literally, there was no beat.
Yeah.
He didn't be like, "Holy fuck, I just had to kill people." These are the things that I talk about in this podcast a lot, but that you can do, developers can do, that isn't, crazy coding. We're talking about just give him a fucking pause, narrative-wise.
Yeah.
And be like, fuck. And like, you know how they do the first person where he's out of breath or something? When you run, you get out of breath. So have him be out of breath for a minute, take a knee, do a Tim
I
Tebow,
see what you mean.
right?
Yeah.
And be like,
kind of reaction.
reaction.
Human
Human reaction.
Terrible thing that just happened.
Because it just took me out of the game, and I'm having such a great time in this world that is totally trying to be immersive. The dark, the night-day, day-night thing, and then this is just like, oh man, I'm playing a fucking video game.
Yeah. It's the power of taking a pause,
Taking a pause.
like a sigh, right? Like sometimes you just need to.
Yeah, have the character just go like,
Or say like, holy fuck, I just murdered 7 people.
Yeah.
By the way, we've mentioned this on the podcast before, but Prey, one of my favorite games of all time, not just because I'm Native American, it's one of the only Native American games.
Yeah, that's a good game.
Prey is fucking great. That's the game where I felt like he was saying what I was feeling. In the very beginning, he's like, what the fuck, aliens? And he's really like...
Yeah. Even when the lights turned out and he was like, the lights have turned out, I guess I'm doomed.
He says that? No, I don't remember
He
that.
makes a reference to doom.
That's awesome.
Oh,
I don't remember that. That's awesome.
Was Turok not Native American?
He was.
Yeah.
He was
But-
too. Yeah.
But still.
As someone who's
Prey's
dealt a lot
better.
with dinosaurs and the effects that dinosaurs can have on people's lives, I definitely like Chirok and me. Yeah,
Turok
like,
is the first
Where you're
rainbow and
crossing
arrow
my fingers
game.
right now.
Crossing your fingers.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into some news after that whole tirade, which I appreciate, which is fun. So there's not much news I have because, truth be told, I was at work until like 2 seconds ago. But PlayStation is going to team up with Spotify to make PlayStation Music. Because if you guys remember, PlayStation has this thing called Music Unlimited that no one used, right? Who the fuck used that?
Right, yeah.
It was like, oh, I can get music on my PlayStation on my television? No. Like,
I'm not doing that.
right?
Shaking my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one uses it. So they're going to team up with Spotify, which makes it a little more like worth something because most people use that in some sort of streaming service. They're calling it PlayStation Music, which is interesting that they're like literally branding it that because it's
They do that though. That's like totally Sony.
Yeah?
Sony's MO, yeah.
just take some of those other stuff
Put
and
their name on it.
Yeah.
But I mean, what is it? Is it just Spotify on your PS4?
Let me
can
read.
You can just log into your Spotify account and
I doubt it. Otherwise, it would just be Spotify app.
PlayStation users may link their accounts to Spotify and play its free ad-supported streaming music or its $10 per month premium service.
Okay.
so it's Spotify.
Yeah.
It's a Spotify.
So
app.
Spotify for your PlayStation.
with the word PlayStation.
I have
Yeah.
Spotify on my
Spotify.
PC right next to my PS3. I don't think I need that.
So that's not a thing.
Yeah, no, that
Anywho.
doesn't work for me.
Also interesting because I love this game, Dragon's Dogma. Did you guys ever play that?
Yeah, I didn't play it, but I really wanted to because I'm hugely into the Dark Souls series.
It's not. It's not Dark Souls.
No, it's not, but it's
Oh, right.
It's very similar. Like people that are into the Demon Souls and Dark Souls series sort of cite Dragon's Dogma as like, oh, if you've played all of those games and you've gotten your fill, but you want more, that's the game that you should play.
Interesting because it's actually much less harder, and I
Yeah.
feel like it's definitely more
Yes.
action oriented.
Mhm.
You can. One of my favorite things to do in RPGs is jump. Like if they give me that option and you can jump in this, so it's third person. Think Dragon Age. Oh, Dragon Age you can jump too.
Yeah,
Inquisition you can jump. Yeah, so it's like Dragon Age Inquisition essentially. It's a great game. It's Capcom. It's weird that they're doing it, but it feels good. And they're going to make an online version. So Dragon's Dogma Online coming to PS4, PS3, and PC as a free-to-play game. Thoughts?
Before I ever set out to play the free-to-play version of a game like that, I would go play the
Right.
the first one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm one of those hipsters that just it's free to play. Oh, okay.
Guess.
I
Yeah.
don't know if I want to do that.
Well, what's interesting, and not to do a tangent back to Dragon Age, which we do often on this podcast, but Dragon Age Inquisition does a little bit of free-to-play shit on their war table.
They do.
Well, it feels like it. So if you're not familiar, Scott, or the audience at home, in the game, which we've mentioned this before, but there's a war table where you can do kind of missions.
Yeah.
But those
so
missions,
what we were talking about for Far Cry, that same sort of idea. Of,
Yeah.
like, you've broken everything into the map. And
right.
Yeah.
But in that map, it takes time to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Free-to-play games do that a lot.
Sure.
Like, wait for this to build, and then, or you can spend money. So you can't spend money in Dragon Age Inquisition. You just have to wait. But it's trying to build in some sort of story element.
Well, it's great because it forces you to stop playing before it's 3 a.m. It's like, this mission is going to take 3 hours. You started at midnight. Do you really want to stay up until 3 a.m.?
That's interesting. It's like the Nintendo thing. Remember, Nintendo's like, take a break.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think Katamari used to do that stuff too. Like, you've been playing for a long time. You should take a break.
You shut up, Katamari. I'll tell you when it's too long.
Yeah, exactly. Shut up, Prince.
That is actually really interesting to think, though, that what we think of now as a free-to-play mechanic, like a Zynga mechanic, is originally like a sim resource management mechanic.
Right.
It's integral to being like, all right, well, this represents effort and how much time you have to do. Like, Civilization happens all the time, right?
Yeah.
You have to wait 3 days for this to happen, so...
Or it's like setting the taxes super high in SimCity and then going and playing out in the backyard for 3 hours.
Oh, yeah.
But now we think of that as like it's a way of managing dopamine release schedules, right?
It's
like
been tarnished by free to play.
But it's a really effective mechanic. But now we sort of see what like you can abuse it, and so now we don't trust it anymore. But it is so valuable.
Yeah, because I think you're right. Because I mean, even it's obviously full disclosure. I work at Big Fish, and we talk about it and. I think there's some games that we actually do really well with free-to-play where, I'm playing a game, Gummy Drop, that's blowing up. People love that game. But at the heart of it, you can pay for extra shit. You can't pay for... You pay for power-ups or whatever. You don't really pay for, like, I'm just going to beat this level. But you don't need to do it ever. I've literally spent... I think the whole company looks at me like, what? Crazy? You're crazy. Because I spent like $1 in the game. It's a free-to-play game. But I think if you do it right, you can make it fun... And then put that on top of it, right?
Well, anticipation is fun. That's the nature of it,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, anticipation is fun, and also skipping anticipation is even more fun. So even if you don't play, you're having, like... It's like being in love, right? Like, I'm going to see her tomorrow. Like, all I can do today is think about seeing her tomorrow. And, like, it doesn't matter what happens when you see her. Like, you're waiting. And then it happens.
But
and
if
then
you call her and you say, like, I'll give you $20 if you come over and have lunch with me right now.
I don't think that would go well.
No, I don't think that.
I think that'll go really awkward. I was just going to be like, Scott, tell me about love. You're like, this is how love works. I'm like, oh, I don't know. Okay. I heard
that. That is how love works.
I heard stories about it. Well, anyways, that's a thing. I don't know what we were talking about anymore. Dragon's Dogma Online. It's a thing. Also, this is just interesting. I love GDC. It's happening soon.
Yeah.
You guys going?
Nah.
He says nah.
I might be. I'm in the middle, like, as we speak. Well, not as we speak, but before we spoke and then after we spoke.
Okay.
After we have spoken, I will be in the midst of working out whether I'm going.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't have a conference pass or anything. I'm just going to go hang out and try to show people.
Yeah, you can do that there.
Yeah.
San Fran's perfect for like just hanging out and showing people stuff.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to show right now.
Yeah, we can just talk. But anyways, it's their alt control like area, which is all the indie stuff. Got announced for all the games that are going to be there. Not Captain Forever Remix excluded, because it might be there on the street.
But on the street.
It's going to be on the street.
Yeah.
But here's some of the names of them. I'm going to say the names and see if you guys know any of them. It's kind of like it's almost like a trivia in a way or something. I'm just going to say the names of the games. Line Wobbler.
Okay.
No? Okay. Venus Box.
No.
Okay. Book of Fate. Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
Yes.
Great name.
That. Yeah.
It's Super Crate Games. So, what else? They did a ton of shit.
I probably won't know any of these unless they're from here. All of the indie games I know are from Seattle.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Pretty
All the
little.
best ones.
Throwing it down. Desert Mini Golfing.
I have heard amazing things about that
But wait,
game.
I don't think it's... No.
Desert Golf?
It's not Desert Golfing.
Oh.
Let me click it. Desert Mini Golfing, a flagon... No, it's different.
Oh, that's too bad.
Disappointing.
Although, I have
I'm sure it's still good.
I have a love-hate relationship with Desert Golfing.
Really?
Which I talked about on the podcast.
Oh, I deleted it. Even though I loved it.
Yeah, okay.
I was like,
Well,
that
also-
needs to not be around me anymore.
Just the fact that, and again, I've said it before, so I apologize to my listeners, but I enjoyed the fact that he was trying something crazy and different and procedural, but then I wanted it to change more.
Mm.
Because if it did, I would have been like mind blown.
But
It doesn't change more.
Does. It changes after 1,000 holes.
I've done that.
Yeah, the
The
background.
leaderboards.
And then there's a face in one of the walls, and then there's a cactus at some point, and then
Yeah.
there's a rock.
Yeah.
You remember these things?
I remember these
It
things.
changed when
They're
that happened.
very small. And what's fun is that I just wish that would have like affected gameplay or something. You know, like something that would have been like, because he had our attention, rapt attention. I think that's how you say it. Rapt. I'm rapt in attention. I'm gonna say it. That's true.
Yeah, do it.
RAPPED.
Yes. It's RAPT, I believe. You go and if I play 800 levels of anything, you have my attention.
Yeah.
Blow me out of the water on 801. All right, motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough.
I'm throwing down the anvil
He
here.
did though. That's where the face.
But
was,
he
in
did.
the wall.
You're like, but there was a face.
You're
That was
okay
a
with
face.
hitting a golf ball into the desert for several hours, but like, so if a face on a wall really should be your reward, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It wasn't
From
enough.
ultimate
All
team
right.
to the
I
smallest
saw a
one
rock.
possible.
It didn't even affect gameplay.
I mean, it's the what's the? Is it called Desert Bus? Is that the?
Desert
Oh,
Bus.
yeah.
Desert Bus.
That's
It's
the
the
Penn and
desert.
Teller.
It's the desert bus
It's
of golf
the
games,
bug
right?
hitting your window.
I'm
is
just-
the reward.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
And this game has more than one bug too.
yeah,
Desert
nice.
Bus only has one bug.
I'm just saying missed opportunity.
I-
That's all I'm saying.
I have some news I think we could talk about. It's the Microsoft glasses they made. That just came out this week, right? They just
Mhm.
started
The
talking about
HoloLens,
that.
yeah.
The HoloLens,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that we're sort of in this very, very strange age. Have you guys talked about
We
augmented
haven't.
VR
Let
reality?
me finish my list.
Yeah, sure.
And then we'll do HoloLens, and then we want to also talk about joystick after,
Hmm.
and then we'll end it out. Real quick, the other games are going to be at GDC. Also, because if you're going, you might want to, like, oh, I know that game. It's going to be there. It's cool. So Desert Mini Golfing, which is not Desert Golfing. Robo Mama's Cooking Kitchen. I feel like I've played that
That's
already.
weird. Yeah, sure.
It's cool. Afterglow, Fernandad Laboite. Crazy name? I don't know. Laboite. What Half God Wrought? Heavy duty name.
Whoa.
Tripad, Deluxe Turbo Racing 360, which sounds from the 90s. Unknown Radio, Homies, Hextart, Butt Surfing Pugs. No, I'm sorry. Butt Sniffing Pugs.
Either
Actually
way.
worse. Or better.
Or better.
Dodal, nope, can't do that one. Dodal Caledron, Space Bro Justice Robot, Space Bro Justice Rocket, I've Had Whiskey, Snail Run. Those are the games that are going to be at the Alt Control
At GDC.
at GDC.
Yeah, I don't go to
So.
GDC to play games. I go to talk to peers.
And I love the panels there.
Yeah,
They're
panels
fucking
are really
amazing
great, yeah.
panels. But I definitely go into the indie section every time I
Yeah.
play all of them.
Yeah, if I do play games,
I don't think there was an indie section the last time I was there.
When was that?
When was it?
1903? Okay.
2005. Yeah, that was a long time.
That
Indie
was a
games
long
didn't
time ago.
exist then.
No, they
Yeah.
didn't. No.
So let's talk about HoloLens for a minute, and then we'll talk about. Dean had this thoughts on joystick or something about joystick, but what? So HoloLens is basically
It's like a Connect on your eyes, right? Like
connecting your eyes. Google.
Connect in your eyes.
I like that.
Is
Yeah.
that what it is? Like it's
Google
got a-
Glass, but
Google
with
Glass they're not
more.
supporting anymore too. So this is going to be interesting. This has been a weird week for AR.
It's basically so. What's interesting? A lot of people said that Connect was getting them ready for this.
Yeah, I think a lot of the technology that goes into the Kinect is really valuable for augmented reality because what it's doing is it's shooting out a bunch of like IR light and bringing that information back, right? It's creating depth in the room in front of you and it's sort of processing that information. So when it's on your head, I mean the Oculus Rift kind of uses this a little bit, not quite to this degree, but it's like, it's head tracking. If you had like the Kinect in front of you, it would be able to track your hands and your feet, and that would be really valuable. But I think this, I don't know. I don't know if it's good. Like I'm kind of flummoxed by the idea.
Well, here's the thing with Oculus, that is an all-inclusive thing, right? So I've used it a lot. It's, you are in a world, you're in a virtual place, and that's it, right? The Google Glass was kind of the other extreme where you can see most of the world, but also there's a weird little screen that,
There's like a half an inch in front of you. That's
Yeah.
like a picture of a person's face that you can't see. Very
and you have
well.
to jerk your neck all over the place. It looks stupid.
Which I would also like to point out for news, they're not supporting anymore because it's horrible.
that was their actual reasoning and their press
Because
release.
Nobody likes it. And it's
We're not going to
ridiculous.
promote this anymore because we found out it's horrible,
Yeah.
and we're just going to say no.
Nobody likes it to have a camera on your eyes when you're talking to somebody.
Yeah.
Nobody trusts you.
It will work when it's a contact lens. That's when that will work.
I'm out. I'm not talking to people.
It's happening. It's happening. But this is kind of in between those, right?
Yeah.
So it's a visor.
It's interesting, right? Because it is kind of in between. It's ARG. It's not VR. It's augmented reality. So you're having sort of imagery overlaid on the world around you. And then the really interesting thing that they seem to be tackling is the issue of like, what's the interface? You know, what am I doing with my hands? How am I interacting with what I'm seeing in this augmented reality world?
Yeah.
And that's something that we haven't. I'm sure that Oculus and what have you are like tackling this problem too, but that's something that we haven't seen these other outfits tackling yet. And with the Microsoft, what's it called again? HoloLens.
Yeah.
You know, we saw in the demo videos and what have you that they're actually starting to explore gestural interface solutions for that. You know, you've got people like reaching out and actually interacting with these interfaces that are sort of overlaid on the world in front of them, and they're like picking paintbrushes up and, you know, plucking tools off the virtual tool desk and like bringing them into the world and like building things out of them.
Minority Report shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting that like the challenges that face us as a species, how different they are now than they used to be. It used to be like, how do we keep ourselves warm at night and able to see the road in front of us? Like, oh, we invented lights. Like, okay, cool. That's not too hard. Now it's like noise. The idea of noise, like this concept of just stuff that isn't important because we now have perceptual technology and our brains have giant sections of it that keep like filter out noise. But we have this thing that we're trying to put in front of our eyes on a chip that's like, you know, a couple millimeters across that is supposed to do all of the stuff that our brain basically does.
Right, which,
you know,
our brain's
is
pretty
insane.
good. It's like it hasn't really needed much help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now we have this thing that's supposed to check, like, oh, is there a hand in front of me? Like, I'm checking every couple seconds. Like, our brains just know, oh, I know where my hand is, I see it, so I'm going to connect those two dots together. But the HoloLens just is looking all the time and trying to figure out, is there something important? Is there something important?
Yeah.
That might be important. Oh, it wasn't. That was just noise.
Yeah. But it's funny is because actually brains do those kind of checks like all the time.
Yeah, constantly.
And we're just like not, you know, privy to what they're doing, you know, or what it's doing.
But we require so much energy and so much brain power to do it. I don't know how, like, what kind of battery pack goes into a thing that is supposed to be watching
always
the
checking.
world?
Yeah. Well, I feel like to me, it feels like it's smaller experiences, right? So Google Glass is like the idea, which obviously failed right now, was go out into the world and use it for all the time, right? This is like, it feels like, oh, I'm going to play Minecraft at home with my kid, and we're going to both have HoloLenses on, and we're going to virtually play with toys that aren't there. You know, which, by the way, to third person with not HoloLens looks real crazy. Like, oh, look, you know, they're playing together. There's nothing in front of them, you know. But I think they're more smaller experiences than like go out into the world and keep, you know, looking. Now that, again, I said, and definitely this will happen, mark my words, the contact lens solution later down the road will be this kind of thing where we can do games, we can do checking or whatever, but that's not here yet, so...
So you guys haven't talked about virtual reality on the show at all?
A little bit, and I love Jaron Lanier. Do you know Jaron Lanier and his book about You Are Not a Gadget? Everybody read that book. He worked on early virtual reality, which did shit that we still aren't doing now in the late 70s.
Picking up the cheese. That's all I remember from early virtual reality.
Up the cheese.
I can tell you a really cool story that's simple, and then don't forget what you're going to say. Jaron worked on this thing, and again, everybody read his book, You Are Not a Gadget. He has another book too, but that one's an incredible one. They were working on stuff like basically in your virtual reality world. If you guys remember, if some of you are old enough to remember that they had this in the arcade where you could put the helmet on and you walked around and you tried to shoot your buddy. And there was like a flying pterodactyl above you, and
the other one you had to pick up cheese in a room.
Oh yeah. So in that kind of setting, so very very limited graphics, they were doing experiments with, let's make your arms in that game, in quotes, really really long. And then you'll be able to pick up things far away from you with your arms. And you'll use a controller or something with your actual hands to do that. But then their brain started figuring out how to adjust for the length of your arms. And that's retraining your brain, right? They were doing that late 70s, early 80s, or whatever that was. And, you know, we're like so like basic in the version of what we're doing with it now. It's like, hey, let's try to play that game. But it's like kind of 360 view of it. Well, I feel like they were really thinking about the space.
They had like that's practicality though, right? Like everyone has an Xbox controller, not everyone has like an arcade size. Like you had to stand in that thing. It was
Yeah.
big.
Oh, right,
It
right,
was
right, yeah.
really big.
Yeah, it's prohibitively you
Yeah.
could. Those guys are working on it, but still, like the concepts were
Yeah.
cool.
The Omni treadmill is sort of our equivalent today, and that's like you could stick that in a closet and be all right.
That thing is
I
ridiculous.
think it's cool.
You could just go into that.
Have you
could just
used
stay
it?
there forever.
I haven't used it.
I have.
Does it feel weird?
It's not good.
No, it looks so cool.
I was
just like the
at-
idea of running in a video game.
There was 2 E3s ago, I think I went, and they had me in a hotel room using it.
Mhm.
I was out of shape / still am. So you need to like be like
Fit.
Yeah.
you're running around. I'm like, this doesn't sound fun at all.
Oh, see, I like that stuff.
And also the
Yeah, you definitely.
I love
sounds
running
like
in a video game.
Okay, here I'm gonna tell you a reason why you might not like it.
Yeah.
There's of course it's like early days when I was using it, but it kind of attaches in a groinish kind of way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Groinish kind of.
Yeah, like there's no other way to keep you suspended,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So it was already
The
uncomfortable.
crotch harness.
Harness, yeah.
Yeah.
And so then you have a gun. They gave me a virtual gun, actual plastic gun that was. So that whole thing was so like out of body, did not feel in control.
Mm.
And even if I played it for a long time, I've said this before. Right now, when you guys leave, I'm gonna play Dying Light, and I'm gonna sit on my couch and be able to see my smartphone and maybe my laptop from the side and know what my environment is and still have a great immersive experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think that those kind of fully immersive only go for so long. Am I wrong on that, or what do you guys think?
I think that's going to be a huge challenge for sure. Like, how do you? I don't know that. Well, I see a lot of danger in the creation of experiences like something like Dragon Age, where you sit there for 6 or 7 hours at a time potentially and play it, and apply that to VR. Like, I don't know if that will work, and I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing either. I mean, in general, I think it would be great if the introduction of VR as sort of a mainstream way to experience games means that gaming experiences get shortened somewhat. I think in general that would be good, because
Agreed.
as an adult with lots of things to do and spend my time on these days, I really appreciate it when a game respects my time and doesn't waste it and doesn't have me spend a bunch of time doing stuff that is not necessarily as interesting as the other stuff that is in the game.
Or doesn't push the story along, right? Like I think that I don't know if it's a as you become older kind of thing or just a as we become more evolved kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely want the story to move along. And even in Dragon Age, the story parts are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's lulls, like a Skyrim. And you're like, well, I guess I could collect a bunch of shit for a while. But if they don't push me into that direction, I might do that, which again is going to waste, in quotes, time because, we don't have a lot of time. So, yeah, I'd like the shorter experiences too.
Well, we have the disadvantages of being not only working professionals in the field and sort of analyzing as we play, which makes it a little harder, but also just having experience over the course of a lifetime of just okay, I get what you're going at. Like, I don't need this. Like, I get it.
Right.
I get it. Let's move on.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it really hard to sort of get into an experience that requires a lot of investment.
Mm-hmm.
But so sort of what I wanted to get at.
Sorry, go back to your
virtual
thing.
reality stuff is that living in Seattle is a really interesting place to be, especially for game development, mostly in the realms of virtual reality and augmented reality, because if you look at all of the companies that are in town, this technology that's growing in the industry, it's from here. Oculus, where did Oculus start? You guys remember? It's not that
No, I have
they
to look
aren't
it up
from
now.
I
here.
don't know where it started, but they've got offices here.
Yeah, so I know Valve was doing a lot of work with virtual reality, and they've sort of stepped away, and so that's where Cast AR, which are do you guys know the Cast AR crew?
Ex-Valve people.
Yeah,
Jerry and
Jerry Ellsworth and Rick.
Yeah.
I can't remember Rick's last name. But yeah, I mean Alan Richter and Josie Nutter, they're all close friends of mine. I'm sure you guys all know them pretty well as well. But it's been really interesting to live here, and as Carlos was saying earlier about those really weird old giant VR machines that we used to get into at the arcade back when I lived in Arizona, and that was really what you could do, was go to the weird VR arcade. But to look at that and then be sort of shifted forward a couple years and discover that there's all of this technology being built in your backyard, because there's the Cast AR people who are building augmented reality, this idea of having glasses on your head that are projecting holograms onto retroreflective paper, which basically means paper that is has this sort of weird matte material. that reflects in a very specific way. So it's projecting a hologram onto that, and then the glasses are polarized, and they're processing the information and then projecting to you images. So the last build they showed us, and it's been weird to watch this sort of be built in front of my eyes, but now you put these glasses on, you look at this gray paper, and now what you're doing is you're seeing through that paper into a virtual world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really fascinating experience to be like, oh, okay, well, everything else I look at is just the room except my table, which is now like it's an entire pool. Like I can step around it, I can look inside, look at all the fish, I can hold up my little wand and fish out like some kind of animal, right? Like that's an incredibly interesting experience, as opposed to the Oculus Rift, which is this thing that you put on your head and you are now in a different world and controlling it with a controller. And then there's the third option, which most people don't really know about, but we know about because we live here, the V-Arcade guys. Have you met V-Arcade?
I haven't met them. No.
Okay, so V-Arcade, they used to be part of the Washington Interactive Network's Reactor program.
Oh, I love Reactor.
Yeah, so they're in the Reactor program, and so what they have is basically a virtual reality headset. So you are immersed in the world. You have headphones on. You are in this room in a strange fantasy world, right? But there are high definition cameras posted around the physical room that you're in. So when you walk around, it's processing your location and the direction you're facing and the thing that you're holding in your hand. So someone can hand you a plastic gun, but you're wearing a headset and you can't see the person, but now you see this gun floating towards you. You pick it up and you can dodge out of the way of bullets, you can shoot things, you can run around the room and interact with this virtual experience.
That sounds like the holodeck.
Yeah, it is very much like the holodeck.
Yeah.
But you have to sort of look, and then plus what was the Microsoft thing called? The HoloLens?
HoloLens, yeah.
Which is very similar to Cast AR, except that it's projecting into anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're in your room and it's analyzing, okay, that's a couch, that's a table,
Yeah.
I'm going to figure that out. So
it's not doing it on the actual room with those cameras that are set up for that actual room.
Right.
It's just doing it wherever you happen to be.
So these are like 4 very specific ways of interacting with the world, right? One is creating a brand new one. One is creating a new one that you are physically immersed in. There's one that creates a portal in a material that you're looking at, and another one that transforms the room that you are in, no matter what it is, right? And they all require different approaches to design.
Yeah.
They all have very different challenges, but they also are very different in how you interact with other people, right? The HoloLens, like you were saying earlier, me and my son, my hypothetical son, can sit in this room and interact together, right?
Yeah.
And have fun and sort of imagine the world as it could be, as opposed to Cast AR, which is more about let's play a board game together, but we want it to be this really complicated experience, as opposed to the Oculus Rift, which I think of as sort of dangerous. Of I can be in my room and be somewhere else. It's the MMO problem.
I can disappear.
I can disappear.
It's like all the 1970s anti-utopian sci-fi things.
Right.
Like you're in a pod. That's it. That's your life.
I'm waiting. I swear to God, in the next couple of years, there's going to be a Time magazine cover where there's a teenage boy sitting in a dark corner with the Oculus Rift on, and the quiet
the
hum.
dangers of the future technology.
And it's something I feel like if the world at large said this is what it's going to be, we would all cry bullshit. But that's probably right. There are going to be people who die in their apartments from just sitting at that controller. And
it already happens with MMOs, and
but now you have the thing on your head.
Yeah.
Right? How horrifying that's going to be.
I think what's interesting about that, and then we'll go to the joystick thing, is that I think, when you spoke of those different types of formats, and you guys, as developers and creating things, that's a bunch of different ways to make things.
Yeah.
And which one do we adopt? Is it like VHS versus beta, where one wins, or or what one becomes popular or easiest to program for? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
they're different worlds, though. They're entirely different.
They're totally,
It's saying do we do TV or do we do something that's not on a TV?
But it'd be interesting to see which ones humans, not even developers or creatives, but humans like the most, because that'll decide it.
I can see how each having its own different uses too, right? Like the ARG stuff, overlaying reality on top of the existing reality. I see that having far more real world practical applications than VR. VR seems much more I'm going to sit in a padded room in my house and experience some type of media, a game or a movie or whatever. And I'm going to do it in a safe place where it's okay for me to disappear and not be aware of the world around me. Whereas ARG tech is much more about I'm, it's just useful to have extra information being thrown at my eyes when I'm going about my business in reality.
But you know what's interesting about that, real quick, and this is definitely something that I just thought of. Even though advertisers and marketers love the idea of ARG, they love this kind of like other thing they can sell you on stuff all the time. When I was hearing you say that, like, oh yeah, but then I could also be kind of immersed and experienced by myself. That's kind of what we want because the world is crazy and telling us stuff all the time, and we're kind of tired of that shit.
It's a way to escape.
It's a way to escape, and so I think if anything, to me personally, that's more appealing because I literally, again, not to belabor the point, as soon as you guys leave, I'm playing Dying Light with all the lights off to go into a place because I'm launching an app right now. I'm working really hard at work, and I'm freaking out. I'm tired. I'm going to have more whiskey in this glass, and I'm going to play Dying Light. But that's what I want. I don't want more information. And to your point earlier, you were saying, like, you know, our brains are already doing all that stuff, and that to give us more of it, it just seems a little heavy duty.
Well, the fifth option, the one I didn't mention, is Magic Leap. I don't know if you guys know anything about Magic Leap.
Yeah.
Oh,
like,
is it the hand stuff? No, I don't know.
it might be bullshit. Like, it might not be a real thing at all, and I think most of us don't think it's real because I've met those guys, and they won't tell you anything about it, which makes me think that they're full of shit.
Are they making magic?
So
like actual magic?
The idea is that they're using, quote, I'm doing the biggest quotes I can right now on the radio.
Those are big.
Those are really huge quotes. It's weird.
Light field technology. So the idea is that they're creating holograms. They're not saying how they're doing it. They're like, you don't need this, you don't need that, you don't need glasses. It just projects the world. So you can be walking out on your porch, and then a dragon flies by, and he drops presents on you, and then
why would he do that? That's a nice dragon.
That sounds like a cool dragon.
It's like, and my feeling about it is, even if it works perfectly, even if I walk out onto my porch and I can see, like, oh, it's an apocalyptic wasteland, right? Like, it's changed my perception of the world as I never would have considered it before. Like, I don't know if I need that. I feel like the world is a giant playground that I can go out and explore and see really cool stuff. Like, I don't need
But doesn't have dragons that drop presents, all right? Because if that's the world that we're going to live in, I want to sign up for that.
But that's what you're saying, though. Like, the world is, there's so much information coming at you all the time, and now you have to decide what's real and what's there that's sort of for novelty. There's so much novelty already.
You know, it reminds me of, and then we have 5 minutes left, is the shark in Back to the Future 2. Yeah. Do you remember that?
Yeah, exactly like that.
That literally is it. Like, he jumps out and you're like, what? And Marty McFly's like, no, it's not real. Oh, yeah.
Do we really need it?
Yes.
Okay, then that's it.
All right.
Can you give us a final answer? That scene was awesome.
I think you're right.
So, real quick to finish up, we were talking about Joystick earlier before the podcast, and that there's obviously Joystick has their own podcast. They're cool. But then something happened where they're going away, or what was that?
Yeah, I mean, my like information is super limited and vague, but they posted this very facetious article where they were commenting on the fact that they are not going to comment on the rumors that they are potentially shutting down, and it was like big on Twitter a couple of days.
This is on the heels of, and I worked in games journalism. That was kind of what I did in San Francisco, games/tech journalism. And a million people that I know, jump shipped, went to game developers, me and myself included. Went to Big Fish. My friend Dan went to Sony, and all these people were jumping and doing that. Or a few of them are doing it on their own, like Greg, a friend of mine, Greg Miller, doing his own kind of funny games. But it's just so interesting to see so many of these big, huge art, games websites / videos going away.
Is Joystick owned by Time Warner?
Yeah.
I'm looking it up right
that
now.
makes things harder. I remember when that happened.
AOL, not owned by AOL, it says. Is AOL Time Warner?
I shouldn't say because I know that it's a big.
So doesn't someone own AOL? I mean, people own everything, but like
Time Warner.
it says now owned by AOL.
I
don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about the ownership of Joystick anymore.
Wait, Jason Calacanis is CEO of what, Weblogs? Anyways,
yeah, Weblogs Inc. Yeah.
They've been around for a long time, right?
Yeah, Joystick.
I mean, they call Joystick, which is a word that
it's
most
a French
of
magazine.
Right. I mean, most of their readership probably doesn't even know what a joystick is because they're too young to even,
Yeah, I remember when I first got into the industry when I was living in San Francisco. It was like my week was the Joystick podcast and the now I can't remember what it's called.
One Up, maybe?
One Up,
Yeah.
the One Up podcast.
I love
and
the One Up
then
podcast.
One Up ended, and then Chris Grant and Justin McElroy left the Joystick podcast, and I was just sort of like, I had nothing to listen to for a while until they brought back the Super Joystick podcast, and thank God Ludwig Kidsman came back, because I don't know, I would have nothing to listen to.
Right.
There's limited ones. I always tell people to listen to Indoor Kids because Kamel and Emily are amazing, and you know. Yeah, it's slim pickings at times, not just for podcasts, but also just for sites. And it's just really interesting to see, you know, I'm a journalism major, you know, degree guy. I love journalism. I love the idea and the concepts that were back in the EGM 1UP days. It's a different world. You know, Joe Schmo can write something and be up before any of those magazines. So they definitely had to adapt, almost similar to the music industry where it didn't adapt. I think gaming did try to adapt much better, but it still had problems. And, I mean, Danny's a friend of mine, Danny over at GameSpot.
Yeah.
They were literally holding down the fort. I mean, Danny and those guys over there, like, that is the last bastion of, like, online video. You know what I mean? Like, IGN's still doing stuff, but, you know, when Greg leaves, I'm like, come on. It's a little weird writing the wall, but...
I think the problem is, like, you really can't succeed anymore. Because when we were kids, we had... like Nintendo Power. I read a lot of Nintendo Power, and we had like games. Was it Game
Informer? Well, Game Informer. No. Game Pro. You mean
Game Pro? Game Pro and Nintendo Power. But they were covering like AAA. Like there was no not AAA titles. Everything was like Namco and Nintendo. And so it was really easy to cover. Like here's the 5 games coming out this year. Let's do in-depth stuff on it. But like, how do you cover the 90 games that came out this month? Even on
just on Steam.
Even on a website. Even on something like this Joystick. Week. Because there's like, oh, well, here's the thing about Dying Light, and here's this thing about, like, you know, whatever EA is doing right now. And you have to recover it because more information comes out. But then there's, like, thousands of indie games that they want to cover. Right. But even if you covered all of them, now your website is a mess. You can't navigate that much information. And then, so how do you succeed at it?
And like we said before, there's too much information in general for human beings right now. So we need it curated. So I think one of the things, not to toot our own horn, but other people are doing the same thing, and Giant Bomb being one of the last bastions of this kind of style podcast, where we're having more casual discussions, and we are not going to tackle everything like we did like 4 news items, you know. But it's just you have it more casual kind of a way, and then you can do it that way. So, all right, we got to shut it down because Deed's got to take off. Let's do where people can find people on Twitter and all the internets. Scott, where are you?
Oh, man, I don't really interact online with people.
Scott's not available online. Dean Tate?
I do interact with people online. So on Twitter, I am just, it's my full name. I am Dean Tate, so IAMDEANTATE. And then we've got an account for Captain Forever Remix too, which is Cap Forever Remix.
Okay,
so and then shortened. And
then you're on the Steam already?
Yep, we're on Steam, so if you want to discuss the game, you can just look up Captain Forever Remix on Steam. We've got a blog on Tumblr. We've got a website. All of that stuff is fun to look up.
And we'll put links in the show notes. And now Scott's rethinking his
if
answer.
If you want to tweet at me, it's at @PlayByMoonlight. I don't say a lot on my own, but I will chat with you. If you tweet at me, I will talk to you for like 3 weeks.
Okay. Whoa, that's like a lot of time.
I talk a lot. I just don't say anything on my own.
Big commitment.
I know. It's almost as big as those air quotes earlier.
Don't do it, because I will. You'll never hear the last of me.
But you can get some of your apps, though, right? Aren't they on the...
They're on the Windows Phone Store. Pitchback and Tonal Recall.
I like them. I mean, if you if you got a Windows phone, why not?
If you want to learn to read sheet music, they're good for you. They're not like, they're not an RPG. They're just they're just music games.
To the beginning of a bigger picture. I'm ONAWA on Twitter, at Video Game Break, Facebook.com/Video Game Break. Our website is videogamebreak.net. Hey, you can write for us if you want to. Just hit the join button, and we make you a publisher and editor person. Then that's it. You just are one. We want to thank our guests today, Dean Tate, Scott Sizemore, and I think that's it, right? Go Internet Video Games. Thanks for being here, guys.
Cheers.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, cheers. Bye.